Hello, and welcome to Brain Stew, where we provide the ingredients necessary to make your brain bubble, but not with a tumor or any lethal malfunction of the brain, but just with careful analysis and insight into what's going on in the world today. I'm sitting here with my co-host and guest for the evening, Chris Putvinski, a graduate student from the University of Pennsylvania studying international development. Chris, thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
So, we've got a lot going on today, so let's get right into it. For those of you who have been following current events lately, this story really shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. North Korea's young leader Kim Jong-un has recently placed his armed forces on high alert, in a sense, towards the United States and South Korea. He's been making bullish claims recently, earlier in the year, touting his new nuclear abilities. They've launched their third successful nuclear test, and essentially he's feeling threatened by the United States' presence on the Korean Peninsula. So, Chris, you know about this subject. Do you feel that he rightfully so should feel threatened by the United States' presence on the Korean Peninsula?
By all means.
I think it's important to note too that the United States has recently conducted an armed test, I think, through the Air Force to fly over North Korea.
That's correct, yeah. 2 B-52 bombers, if I'm not mistaken, over the South Korean area. I'm not entirely sure if that was planned. I know that South Korea, or the U.S. and South Korea did have a pre-planned mission early in the month that will upset North Korea an awful bit. That was planned, and it's also important to note that South Korea and the U.S. just did agree to a little treaty, if you will. It's not necessarily a treaty, but it's an agreement plan that South Korea does have to abide by. It includes, for example, if the North were to attack South Korea like it did in 2010, well, the whole mess there, we don't know, never mind. But if that were to happen, South Korea essentially does have to abide by, has to consult the U.S.
Okay.
Being like, we want to do this, or this has to happen. They can't attack without consulting the U.S. So that's significant as well.
So South Korea essentially is almost an arm of the United States over there.
You could say that. I'm not going to jump into that. Do note that when the Koreas were divided in the 1950s, which, by the way, North Korea, I mean, this, in a sense, goes to the provocateur sense of North Korea canceling the 1950 armistice that was created after the Korean War. You know, China got essentially North Korea. The U.S. got South Korea. Okay. I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it an arm. You did have just elections in South Korea. The President Park, new president there. I wouldn't necessarily call her an arm. She's more friendly to the U.S. as the last president was extremely friendly to the U.S. This president, you could say she's friendly to the U.S. more so than the other person who was up for election. But
right. So, do you think? I mean, I think it's obvious that South Korea sees that they're benefiting from the U.S.'s intervention there, but
intervention's a strong word. It's not an intervention.
Right. So, what would you call it?
I mean, if you look at U.S. foreign policy, we have military bases throughout. I mean, did you know we are actually, for example, for Japan, if Japan were attacked, if you look at the disputes right now going on between China and Japan with the, South China Sea, East China Sea with China and the Philippines, for example, if, say, the South China Sea, if China were attacked, we would be bound by treaty to act, to defend Japan because of World War II.
Okay.
That's just one instance. So intervention's a really strong word. Right.
So it's not so much intervention as
you got to understand. We are the powerhouse of the world. We are the strongest. We are the strongest superpower the world has ever seen. We do have a foot in almost every foreign policy realm.
So it's almost our democratic duty to ensure that.
No, I wouldn't call it that either. I wouldn't call it that either. It's kind of. No, that's strong. I'm just gonna hold you back. I don't know what to call it. If I did, I would call it something.
Yeah.
But
well, I understand.
Strong language. I don't agree with the strong language. Some people would. Some people are totally for, evacuate, get out.
Right.
We should be worrying about us.
And it is, I will note, a complicated situation, which is why there is not even really a word to describe what's going on over there, because there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the event. Like we said, North Korea recently has placed their armed forces on high alert. They've made bullish claims that they can attack the United States with nuclear weapons if they wanted to, which a lot of analysts speculate isn't necessarily the case.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look at North Korea. For example, picture a state. North Korea, you have to understand what North Korea is and how they've deteriorated over the years. Picture a state that if you were to go to the demilitarized zone between South Korea and North Korea, naturally both sides want to put out their best guards. Picture a state where the South Koreans are 6 inches taller than the North Koreans.
And physically?
Physically.
Okay.
Physically taller than the North Koreans. That's what a famine state looks like, and that's what North Korea is. And you have these new sanctions going through, which the U.S. is backing, pretty much pushing through. Right. And even North Korea's pretty much only ally, has decided to go through with them as well. And North Korea realizes that they're in serious trouble, and they need to do some provocative things in order to, hey, we're here, we have capabilities to. This is what they claim. Right. Strike, and that's why also their arsenal, even their ballistic missiles, forget their nuclear tests, can only reach. That's why they're targeting South Korea, U.S. South Korean army bases, and Guam.
So what you're saying is that they're essentially just saying, hey, we're here. Listen to us. You're not the only country in the world.
Pretty much. The media will love to hype this up. I mean, right. it is important. I'm not saying totally dismiss it. Who knows? They could fire, tomorrow. They could hit South Korea or Guam the best evidence tells us right now that the best they can do is reach Hawaii at best.
Right. So I think it's interesting to note that the last American that Kim Jong-un had, I think, personal contact with was Dennis Rodman. So, and then as a result of that, apparently a story is online saying that North Korea has decided to change the rules of basketball in which a dunk will count as 3 points, a shot made within the last 3 seconds will count as 8 points, and a missed free throw will be penalized by minusing 1 point. So it's hard to say exactly how serious to take North Korea at this point, but it's certainly a story to keep your eye on. Chris, I want to thank you for being here and talking with me about this topic tonight. It's been great.
Pleasure.
Thanks. Dude, that was sick.
I think
nice.
We did all right.
That went really well.